So, I'm definitely left thinking that the world of Metroid Prime 4 has just so much to it. Time travel has essentially been confirmed to be in Metroid Prime 4. Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and it appears an enormous secret, or rather, a series of really big secrets, including one that is very substantial, have been revealed. And a lot of this comes through digging through all the different information that has come out from last Friday, where we got previews, where we got the overview trailer, and where we got a huge update from the Japanese website all about Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. There has been so much information to comb through and sort through, analyze, and try and find little bits and secrets, and it looks like I have found some things here, some things that might totally shock you. And to be honest, I'm shocked. I did not expect to find these things and for them to confirm things we've talked about before that are very interesting and are highly suggestive of a vast, beautiful, in-depth world that is Metroid Prime 4. So I am very excited to talk about what has been discovered and how it all connects today. Do you find yourself feeling tired, unable to take a good nap during the day from wherever you may be? Then perhaps you are in need of a soft, comfortable sleep mask that blocks out all light. Fortunately, Manta Sleep, the sponsor for today's video, has just that, a quality sleep mask. This sleep mask has super soft, comfy cushions that cover your eyes and block out all light. It's easy to adjust to different sizes, and it feels great to wear, and it's helped me personally fit in just a bit more rest during my days. So if you're looking to improve your sleep and energy, check out the Manta Sleep Mask using the link in the description below with my code SLEEPRESTART. And if you do so between the dates of November 19th to the 27th for an early Black Friday Cyber Monday sale, there is an additional 15% off the entire site, and you'll also get a free holiday recharge kit. Now's your chance. So let's start small here, and by small, still very large. But we got an interesting look at the map of Metroid Prime 4 from Stephen Totillo, who shared some footage from his preview of the game. His article will be linked in the description below. But as you see here, as it expands out to the world map, you can see that it's just super vast. Like, when we're zoomed into a particular area, you can see a 3D map that shows the elevation and various levels, which has its own interesting implications. But then just looking here at how many hexagons there are for the entire world, there are so many out there. Like, just a few, like he explained that it was only like 3 or 4 that were covering the area he got to find in Fury Green, yet there are so much more out there. Now, this middle hexagon is believed to be the tower, the Chrome Tower in the middle of Soul Valley, where Samus wakes up after the big explosion on planet Tanimar, the inciting incident to the game. But just looking at this map here, it does look very vast, and then when we see the 3D maps, there is a decent amount there as well. There's quite a bit of depth and elevation that's shown. Like, they're showing the actual terrain, the topography of the environment, which they haven't done before. Like in prior Metroid games, yes, you would see like this map here, and you would see various elevations, but they wouldn't show the topography of the environment, and we can see that there's quite a bit to the environment here. There are structures that are higher up, we can see a mountainside, how it goes down, how there are lower levels, so there's a suggestion of a great deal of depth to this world. Now, maybe that's just how they choose to depict the map, and it just kind of looks cool, and that's all there is, but as we dig deeper and deeper into the findings and analysis I have today, I think you'll come to realize that there is something about this that's actually indicative of the actual game. But yes, this is just a zone map, and then when we scroll further ahead, we see the area map, and it's pretty substantial. Now, I'll also point out something neat. There are markers you can place now, so the map is so vast that they feel the need to incorporate a marker system like most games have today, so that is going to be helpful for navigation of this vast world. But at first, I was confused about this map, but then I came to look at the official map that is shared from the Nintendo Japanese website, as you can see here, and what we were looking at was this right here. This was the middle area. This is the Chrome Tower, right? Chrono Tower, I should say. I was pronouncing it wrong. and this is Fury Green. So we were exploring this area, which apparently just 3 or 4 squares, and then all the way over out here is the middle area that is Chrono Tower. And yet there is so much more to this world. Now, I've talked about in a video from a few days ago that this map is actually suggestive of a vast, vast world. So yeah, the desert is like this open area you can explore that is like the field from Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess Hyrule Field, as they've actually mentioned in the previews, and actually talked about back in September when we first got our look at the desert, that they would treat it kind of like a Hyrule Field from Zelda, and that's literally what Nintendo reps were telling press at the preview event, so I feel pretty good about that one. You take a look here, right, we have these different big areas that they talk about in the overview trailer, right? You have the Volt Forge, you have Fury Green, you have the Ice Belt, and you have the Flare Pool. Something they did not mention by name is the Great Mind. It's a whole other area that they don't talk about, but it's another big area, and there's a giant drill that's digging into the underground of this world, and I think that's something else important to keep in mind here. But something else about this world I want you to keep in mind is that there are these big little dirt piles here, or these gray areas. We've seen this before from prior Prime trailers. This appears to be sections where there was a whole bunch of Federation like housing or technology or just buildings that were transported to this land alongside some of the people there, like Samus and the troopers, and they are now embedded into the ground somewhat. They are somewhat submerged into the sands, and we can see that there, and these are other points to explore, helping to fill out the vast area that is the desert, Soul Valley. And yet, we still know more about this desert that we can do. Like, there's this giant crater here, which is certainly a very interesting point of interest, but we've also learned that there are these little areas here that you can explore that do something. So let me go ahead and just translate this here real quick. And so it says, Soul Valley is dotted with ruins once built by the Lemorne tribe. If you can open the entrances guarded by the statues, you'll be drawn into the underground ruins. So I talked about this point before in Saturday's video, but there is a reference to an underground ruins. These are almost like shrines from Tears of the Kingdom, scattered all throughout the vast desert, and then when you get to them, you can access an underground ruin. What are in these underground ruins? We do not know. But when we take into consideration that there are the Great Mines, where there's a giant drill that's literally digging into the ground, mining into this world here, and also the map we've seen of Metroid Prime 4, when we're in the particular zones, they take the time to share the topography of the world and show just how much depth there is, like literally from a 3D perspective. That is suggestive of a vast world to explore, perhaps underground as well. So somewhat similar to Tears of the Kingdom here, we are seeing several signs depicting a depth to Metroid Prime 4. There's more to it than just the surface, which, by the way, actually makes tons of sense, because Metroid games usually are about exploring, getting deeper and deeper to the world. The true evil, the true secret, the true main goal is getting to the core of it all, literally, like getting deep and deep closer to the core of whatever planet Samus is on. So, seeing these depictions and signs that there is an ancient ruins and that there are depths and there are greater levels or more underground levels below the surface, well below the surface, that does suggest a far more vast world here. Even though from what we're seeing based off the map, it's already a super huge world to explore. But something else about the desert that I noted a few days ago is that there is this big creature that we've seen in the desert that we can fight multiple times, seemingly some kind of field boss. Another similarity we've seen from Breath and Tears, where you have this open world to explore, and out in the open field you can find giant enemies. It appears that at least in the desert there are going to be field bosses, some kind of sand creature that can burrow into the ground and such, giving me kind of like those giant dune worm vibes here. And then of course there's all the interesting things you can do throughout the desert with jumping around and racing and finding all the other smaller enemies. So there's actually seemingly a great deal to do in the desert. But stick with me here, we still have a lot more to get into, and it's all going to connect. And if you've gone this far into the video, let me just take this moment to point out I do have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers. So if you find yourself enjoying this video or some of my other videos, and you haven't subscribed already, I would very much appreciate your subscription. So, a while ago, I would say about a month or so ago, we got translations from magazine scans about Metroid Prime 4 from the Nintendo Dream magazine. And the initial translations we saw were presented to us from the publication Universal Nintendo, written by Necrofelipe. And about a week later, a few days later, these initial translations were challenged by others, and basically the consensus at that point that only about half of the translations or so from the initial Universal Nintendo article and reportings were accurate. And when I saw this, I was very curious about what was going on. I reached out to Necrofelipe, I reached out to others to try and get an understanding of what happened there, and I made a video on both situations. But I had a suspicion that maybe the reason why the translations from Universal Nintendo didn't match up to everyone else's translations is possibly because there was more information that Universal Nintendo had access to. I have no confirmation on this. This is purely speculation here. And I didn't really talk too much about that at the time because, well, there wasn't much evidence to support it. But now, I think there is. So, I took a few screenshots because I made a video about this article when it came out. It has since been taken down. But there are several things in this article that most people did not translate from the scans that have since been confirmed. So, for example, it is talked about in the article how there are subterranean colossuses or colossi, big creatures that are coming from underground, the sands, the deserts, right? And we just talked about how they have revealed to us there appears to be some sort of field boss that is some sort of weird sand creature like worm monster that very likely can go in and out of the surface, something like a subterranean colossus creature. So it's very curious that this part of the translation seems to have at least guessed something like this. Now, people have made accusations that AI was involved with putting together all this information, so maybe the AI, the generative AI, just saw that Metroid Prime 4 has a vast desert and just connected the dots that there could be subterranean colossuses, kind of like Dune, which may be why the creators of Metroid Prime 4 Retro Studios had an idea, well, if we're going to have a vast desert, we should put some big worm monsters that come from underground. So it could just be something like that. But that is just one example. There is more. There was information that wasn't even included in the article that was taken down by Necrofelipe that we covered in the video, which is still up, by the way. You can go back and watch the video to get all this information when it was initially reported. But there was talk of the Silex amiibo providing you some sort of significant story cutscene being a flashback to his story. And we've since gotten it confirmed with the overview trailer that came out on Friday that the Silex amiibo does indeed include access to a cutscene, presumably about Silex, perhaps even being a flashback so we can learn more about him. Now, you don't need the amiibo to access this, for the record. The amiibo just allows you to access it earlier on. But the point is, this information about the Silex amiibo giving you access to a important cutscene came from those initial translations that other people did not report on or see from the magazine scans. And yet, there is more. And this is going to get really interesting. Something that was very much challenged by the translations were these 2 points here. This talk of this character, Ace Raxus, which we'll get to a little bit later, and the idea of this Lemorne, who is a female. When other outlets came out and did their translations where the consensus was that they were the more correct translations, there was no mention of a female Lemorne. But this is where things get really interesting, everyone, because we do have a very exciting discovery to go over here. This is coming from Stephen Totillo's preview. He saw during the preview event in Fury Green a scan. There is this talk of this character here, so I'll just go ahead and read it from the logbook. Shay, the only female member of the Lemorne priesthood and the first to understand the structure of space and time. Her insight led to a method of moving across space-time and, in turn, the invention of the teleporter. Okay, so this is another thing that those initial translations that many people doubted were accurate, well, there's something else here that has since been confirmed that is in the game. There is a particular special female Lemorne who has figured out things about the structure of the universe. So, We have the flashbacks of Silex from the amiibo. We have this very intelligent, special female Lemorne character. We have these big subterranean creatures from the sands. All of those things were mentioned in the translation, but were all challenged afterwards by others. Yet now we've seen all of these things confirmed. So what does that perhaps suggest? Maybe nothing. It could all just be a weird coincidence. Because from what we have seen of the 2 pages from the magazine scan, it does not appear that any of this information is there. So where did the information come from with the initial Universal Nintendo article? This goes back to my speculation that maybe Necrofelipe had access to more information that was presented in that article, and that wasn't clearly detailed in the article, and maybe that has something to do with why he took it down, or again, maybe it's just somehow a weird coincidence. But if it isn't a weird coincidence, there's something else we've learned here. That this Ace Raxus character might actually be something legitimate. And here it says, a massive creature with an organic body and metallic components. It serves as guardian of the depths of Vuros and can be either an enemy or an ally depending on the player's actions. So this is a very exciting description for a character we have not heard about. Now keep in mind, everyone has challenged these translations, right? But with everything else these initial translations seem to be getting right, I now go back to this. What could this mean? Some people have speculated that maybe this was simply a mistranslation for the space pirate you fight on planet Tanamar in the first few minutes of the game, that is Abarax, which is a space pirate that I guess would be an organic creature that does have some metal armor, so maybe that's where the confusion comes in there. But he is no guardian of the depths of Vuros. Now, maybe you could perceive it as the final boss you fight before you are sent to Vuros, so maybe? But this whole talk of him being an enemy or an ally, like, no, Abarax is just straight up a space pirate and is your enemy. However, throughout the websites and marketing of Metroid Prime 4, there have been hints about questioning who is your ally and who is your foe throughout the course of this game, and that could be a reference to that if this indeed is some sort of very weird translation error of some kind. But if it's not, it is suggestive of a whole other character that has not been revealed yet, that has to do with the depths of Vuros, which we just talked about. There's actually quite a bit of signs that there is more to the depths of Metroid Prime 4 that Nintendo has yet to show off. So there could be a vast environment to explore here with this important character that will treat you differently based off the decisions you make in the game. And this gets more interesting because Nintendo has since revealed the Federation troopers that at times will accompany you during certain sections of the game and will play a vital role to the story. Could there be some decision making there? Possibly. But let's go back here, because there's something else really important that we just sort of glossed over that I think is an even bigger deal potentially here. Shay understands the structure of space and time. Her insight led to a method of moving across space-time, and in turn the invention of the teleporter.
This must be the master teleporter.
I can't believe it. We're actually going home.
So if you've been following along with these different Metroid Prime 4 theory videos, for years we've been theorizing that time travel will play a significant role in Metroid Prime 4. And the main reasoning behind that is because back in 2015 there was an interview with Prime producer Kensuke Tanabe where he provided some thoughts as to what he would like to do with Metroid Prime 4 when we would eventually get it. And he talked about having a story centered around Samus and Silex. That has since been confirmed. But something else he talked about was wanting to handle the situation regarding a light and dark world for Metroid Prime 2 in a future game where time travel would impact both the gameplay and the story. That was the overall implication here, I'm paraphrasing. And with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, there is the whole title of Beyond, and the logo of the game is a black hole, and we've talked about before how there have been theories that black holes can be the entrances to wormholes that take you to a white hole, essentially some kind of portal, perhaps some kind of teleporter. And the other thing about black holes is that as you approach them, their gravity is so intense that the way space and time work is not the same as you approach a black hole. So there is some theories and understandings of science when it comes to black holes that can also feed into what may be going on here. And we've also seen from the back of the box art that there is a reference to both space and time traversal. So there's actually already been a decent amount of reason to think that time travel will play a role with at least the story Metroid Prime 4. And now with this logbook entry of Shay, the only female Lemorne that worked with space and time and invented a teleporter, that feeds more into this. And actually something else to keep in mind here when talking about this time travel element are the Lemorne, because we've seen all of them are appearing in a ghostly-like form. Like maybe not actually being alive, just spirits being left over after their actual lives. However, we've seen one Lemorne that isn't so ghostly from the website and the magazine scans. Perhaps this one in particular is Shay, and she's from a different time, and you'll be able to visit her when you travel to the past. But there is something else here. From the website, there is this clip that is at the very end of everything, and I'm not going to play it in case people don't want to see footage of how Samus looks later into the game, if you want to avoid that spoiler. But there is this clip that I could play here, which I will not. I played it in the Saturday video if you want to check that out, or you just check out the article. It will be linked in the description below, the Japanese website for Metroid Prime 4. But in this clip, they talk about a teleporter, and they also talk about finally being able to go home. Now, I don't think that they will actually be able to go home. I don't think they would show an endgame cutscene in the website previewing the game. I think more likely something is about to go awry here. But when we consider that Shay created a teleporter that has to do with traversing across both space and time, and we know that Kensuke Tanabe wanted to create a game that had time traversal here, and this is likely not the end of the game, because why would they show that at the very end of the game? And also, why would they have a good ending considering the history of Metroid, where most people traveling alongside Samus or working with Samus die very sad, brutal deaths? I think the more likely scenario here is that something very interesting is about to happen, having to do with time traversal, and it may go beyond just the story. When we think about the huge file size of Metroid Prime 4, the biggest Nintendo-made game file size ever, it definitely gets me wondering just how big this game actually is. Now, of course, we have voice acting, there's so much to the music, and the environments have so much to them. It may be the case the game has so much detail that that's the reason why it's taking up such a large file size. But we are talking about a game here that has almost double the file size for Tears of the Kingdom, a huge, huge game from Nintendo. And reminder, I'm talking about Nintendo-made games here. That's the comparison point, because Nintendo-made games, they are very efficient with their file compression, so they have smaller file sizes compared to other games out there. There are other games out there that can have 3 to 4 times the size in terms of file space it takes up, but are not nearly as large of an actual game you get to actually play and enjoy in terms of all the content there is. But in terms of Nintendo-made games here, Metroid Prime 4 is substantially larger than Tears of the Kingdom from a file size perspective. So, I'm definitely left thinking that the world of Metroid Prime 4 has just so much to it. Time travel has essentially been confirmed to be in Metroid Prime 4, but how will it be used? How will it impact the story? How will it impact the gameplay? Are we going to traverse space and time and end up in a different time in the world of Viros where everything is different, essentially doubling the map? And what of the depths and the ancient ruins and the great mines and this Ace Raxus character that may not be a real character at all, but with everything else these translations have seemingly gone correct, I have to wonder, could it be the case that maybe, somehow, there was something else that Universal Nintendo had access to, and that's why they put it in the article even though everyone else did not see that kind of information? There's plenty of reason to be skeptical here, but there's also plenty of reason to think that there's clearly a lot more to the world of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and that's very, very exciting. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, you can use my code SLEEPRESTART when checking the link in the description below for the Manta Sleep Mask. This is AndresRestart, thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon.